Hello, welcome to the Very Wool Podcast, Episode 3. My name is Diana Hawthorne, also known as the Delaware Spinster. I'm going to talk to you today about a lot of knitting whips and a couple of finished objects. So to get started, I'm going to talk to you about what I'm wearing. As we discussed on the last episode, I was almost finished with my Stripes sweater, Stripes, by Andrea Knits or Andrea Mowry, and it is all uppercase with an exclamation point because stripes are exciting, and they did keep me going through this sweater, so I'm all about the stripes. So I did finish this last week. I finished it right after recording the last podcast episode, and then unfortunately last weekend was a bit hectic, so I did not get a chance to record an episode. So I have now worn this sweater probably 7 times in the last 2 weeks. I absolutely love how it came out. So it is quite cropped. I did the cropped version. I did the cropped sleeves because I pretty much always do cropped or 3/4 length sleeve. I'm very happy with how it came out. I mostly wear it over dresses, and a lot of my dresses have like an empire waist or a higher waist, so or they tie in the front, so it looks really cute with that. But around the house, I do often wear it with jeans as well. So I'm wearing it with jeans. I have to wear an undershirt so that I don't have, well, you know, I guess around the house it wouldn't really matter, but I feel more comfortable wearing it with an undershirt, at least if I'm wearing it with jeans or high-waisted pants. So I love how this came out. I think it fits really well. I think it's really comfortable. I know we talked about it a little bit when I was still in progress, but a lot of these are my own hand-spun yarns. 5 of the 9 stripes are hand-spun. The yellow is hand-dyed by me, and then the red and blue and this, which is mohair, are commercial or purchased hand-dyed yarn in some cases. So anyway, I'm really happy with this. I absolutely love it. I love the neckline. I feel like I wanted it to be more open because I just can't stand having a tight crew neck. So I'm really happy with that. I think it's flattering, but most importantly, it's super comfortable. I'm happy with how the coloring came out. I didn't stray too far from Andrea Mowry's original sample in terms of the color choice, but it was sort of coincidental how that worked up. I'm sure that was in the back of my mind, was the picture of her wearing a sweater that kind of looks like this, but I also first got this and this on sale at a yarn shop. I saw these 2 little yarns, just 1 skein left of each. And I thought, oh, that could go in a stripes, because I'd been already starting to kind of spin some yarns. So I wanted to use colors that worked really well with the range of natural colors. This is merino that is naturally colored. This is a mohair and a merino blend, naturally colored. This gray one has Angora and merino. And then the brown is colored by alpaca. This is a blend, so there is some hand-dyed wool in there as well as some natural. So anyway, 4 of the stripes are naturally colored, and I wanted to use as much of that as possible and then add in colors just to make the natural colors kind of shine. So I'm really happy with how it came out. I absolutely love it. It's super comfortable. I know that I'm lucky because not everybody can wear like something like this hand-spun mohair blend right against their skin, or even like a woolly wool like this one. I can. So yeah, I'm loving it. I am. I'm sad that it's going to get warm soon and I'm not going to be able to wear it anymore, but I'm absolutely loving it for now. And I've worn it with quite a few different dresses. I'm getting a lot of compliments on it, and it just feels great. Don't you love wearing something you made? It makes me really happy. So that's what's going on with this. I do need one bit of advice from you, which is I'm getting some pilling. That's standard. That makes sense, especially because some of the area near the armpit, which, by the way, the stripes came out perfect there, so I'm happy to show you that. But there are some merino and some of the Angora yarns are close enough to where my arm rubs that I get a little bit of pilling. That's okay. But I've found that my standard little electric depiller that I got a long time ago, it works great for my husband's socks. It works great for commercial yarns, and yet somehow with something like this, the pills look different, and I can't, the shaver's just not getting to them. But I also have, I'm sure this came for free in some sewing set, this little shaver. It's not the best. I feel like it's a little bit too aggressive. I was able to remove some of these, but I felt like it was a little bit too aggressive. So if anybody has a suggestion for what works really well on pilly sweaters, I know not to just pull because then you remove too much of the fibers. And I'm so scared using a razor or using a scissor on this because I know I could do it, but I would feel more comfortable using something that is specifically made to remove pills. So if you've got any hot tips for me, please share them. Okay, so next, my second and last finished object for this last couple of weeks. So as you may know, I use an Erlbacher CSM. I machine knit socks. I crank socks because I do not really yet have the patience to knit socks by hand. I've tried and frogged many a sock. So I machine knit socks, and sometimes I get a backlog of socks that then still have to be finished by hand, and I'll show you in a minute what that looks like. But these are a finished pair, yay! So they're beautiful, I love them. They are the kind of a neon color scheme that I don't really generally wear on my body, but like on my torso, because I think close to my face it doesn't look so great, but they're fabulous for socks. I love it. So, so these are a couple of my repeatable hand-dyed colorways. This one, Tear in Your Hand, can also be used for assigned pooling, but here I just like how it made a stripy sock. And this is Pandora's Aquarium, one of my earlier colorways that I still had sitting around. And the cuffs are Baah Yarn La Jolla in Outer Banks Sunset. So I got this on my honeymoon. And the cuff part is just 100% superwash merino. There's no nylon in it, which probably will not hold up as well, but that's okay because the pressure on these is in this section, right? So anyway, I love these socks. I'm very happy with them. And yeah, that's my other finished object. They've obviously been blocked, so they look perfect, but I did wear them also yesterday. So they still kind of held up their shape, which is great. So speaking of socks, so I've been working a lot on learning how to switch colors for the heels and toes. I was using some scrap yarn earlier to make a cranked sock. So this is kind of a weird choice in terms of I went with a color for the cuff, and then because I didn't have enough of it to do the whole sock, I switched to practice switching, but then, you know, did most of the foot along with the heel color. Not a standard choice. Again, using up yarns. Doesn't matter to me if my socks look weird or don't look like what people expect, especially early on when I'm sort of experimenting and getting used to my skills. But then I did do the contrasting toe as well. And this is what a sock looks like when it comes off of the machine, right? So I do the heels and toes on the machine. I do a folded cuff on the machine, so this is folded and tacked down. And I'm still learning, obviously. I'm also still trying to figure out how wide of a folded hemmed cuff I like. and how much yarn I like between the cuff and the heel, like how long or how tall the legs should be. I'm not much for long legs for the socks. I really do prefer shorties or something in between. And yeah, I feel really good about my foot length for this sock. I do 62 rows, and that has been working for me in several different yarns. It's worked well at the gauge that I have, or at the tension that I have on the machine. So I think I'm pretty good with that. I'm still only making socks for me, by the way. So someday I'll learn more and do more, but right now it's still like early in my sock knitting journey. So when they come off of the machine, they still have either the setup bonnet, or once that's removed, they have the extra trash yarn, scrap yarn, basically, okay, to start them. So I have to remove this, and then I also have to remove it here and pick up my stitches, and this is where we graft the toes, or do what's sometimes called Kitchener stitch. I don't like calling it that. He didn't create it, but basically we're going to graft this together so that it looks like that, and then you'll see how that's going to be a toe. So yeah, so this is my whip that I'm sure I'm going to finish today. And because I've been practicing with changing yarns and feeling really good about it, I decided it's time to crack into my nicer stash, not just like hand-dyed little bits that I have lying around, but some specific sock yarns. So, so later, maybe today, maybe in the coming week, I'm gonna do a couple of socks with like a hand-dyed yarn that I got specifically for socks. So this is spun right round. This was actually a de-stash that went really well for me because this is beautiful. And it's called Hairbrush Microphone. So this is specifically supposed to be a sock yarn, and I just think it's going to be really fun and whimsical, which is perfect for me. And slightly more exciting, I am going to do my first self-striping sock. So with the self-striping yarn, somebody, in this case Carrie from Freckled Whimsy, worked very hard in order to, use math and skill and a ton of time and effort to make a yarn that is going to stripe in the sock for me, because I love stripes. So so I have so many self-striping sock yarns. I got a ton of them, and then I've been afraid to even use one because, it costs extra. It should cost extra. It's hard to do. I don't dye self-striping sock yarns myself. For one day or two thought I was going to, and then the more I learned about it, I was like, nah, it's not me. But I'm really excited about this one. And this in particular, Freckled Whimsy, Carrie was selling it a slight discount because it was an error. Now this is incredibly beautiful. So how could you say that it's an error? Well, we're going to find out when we actually crank it. But it's called Failures Are Okay. So my husband thought this would be the right self-striping sock yarn for me to start with. And I'm going to try and think of it that failures are okay, because I really do want this sock to be perfect, and yet I do recognize that it doesn't have to be. Even if the yarn costs a lot, it's still going to be worn on my foot and effective and keeping me warm and doing its job, even if it's not perfect. And that's why she still sold it, even though it didn't come out perfectly like how she expected the dyeing to go. So so at any rate, I'm really excited about it. It's super soft. It's her Serenity base, so it's like a standard superwash merino nylon 4-ply. I love a 4-ply, even though most of the socks I've been wearing so far are 2-ply. I like both, so so let's see how it goes. And I think I am going to use the intended mini that she gave. This obviously is a sock set. I've never actually used a sock set, so so I think I'm going to do at least the heels in this. I'm not sure if I'm going to do the toe in this or not. And there's a part of me that almost, this has so many colors in it, I could use something in my stash and then save this for a harder self-striping sock to match. I do intend to do contrasting heels and toes for self-striping yarn. And I have not decided yet what I'm going to do about the cuff. So I've got to think about that a little bit more. But anyway, I'm really excited to actually jump into my premium stash, because with sweaters, I certainly do that. I make exactly what I want to make. I'm not really saving things for something special because I'm so comfortable with knitting at this point, fortunately, and with crocheting that, and I also know you can pull it out, right? You can frog it. You can go backwards if you made an error. So why save special stash, right? And yet here I am with the machine, and I'm insisting on like, okay, I'm just gonna make these scrappy socks with stuff that I have lying around that I'm not using. It's crazy. I should just get into my self-striping yarns. So I'm going to. So yeah, so I'm really excited about that. Now for actual non-sock business is done. So actual whips that I have. And I want to talk about a few of these. I know I've mentioned my Nightshift before. So this is the whip that is pretty much furthest along for not talking about a sock, which is faster. And I'm really liking how it's coming out. This is one of those cases where I was using it as a stash buster. So you can see, let me just, yarn is caught. Okay. So it's got a little bit of everything. Started down here with some darker colors. I got into a section where I have probably a little bit too much white, although it's not that bad. And then I kind of went darker again. So I am using a lot of my very first hand spun. Some of the yarns that I was really proud of at the time, but just, didn't make a sweater quantity. They're not merino. They're like coarser wool. I didn't do the best, most consistent job. So I have used this as an opportunity to do some marling and to use all kinds of different scraps. Some of my early, this section here that has like a variegated yellow, white, mauve kind of yarn is some of my early hand spun hand dyed. So this is a mix of commercial yarns that I didn't get enough of. Because I used to buy one skein at a time, right? Like a lot of us start out that way. And hand spun and hand dyed and little odds and ends. And my goal was like basically the ugliest pile of yarn possible in my stash. Like I don't have stuff that's, ugly is a judgmental word, and maybe I shouldn't put it that way. But it was stuff that I just was not excited about. Stuff that I didn't know what else to do with, and I didn't want to make a striped sweater like this because this, I still want it to match. I still want it to look really nice. And I just thought this is a great opportunity with this stitch pattern, since it's mosaic knitting, and it's just, it's a fabulous pattern. So I went for it. I went with weird stuff, and I'm loving it. I think it's gonna be really different from a lot of my others. And it's not quite, or I'll back up and stand up for you. I don't think it's quite big enough for me yet. I like really big shawls. And my Attune shawl from Andrea Mowry, which is a similar, not similar pattern, but it's a similar gauge and like a thicker, like it's not fingering weight. It's more like worsted weight or DK weight. I feel like that's about this size, which is great. It works out. I wear it. I love it. But I don't really want two thicker shawls that are the same exact size. So I think this one, I'm going to make it humongous. That's my plan, is to just keep going and going. So this works from the tiny end up to, at this point, it's already, 36, 40 inches at least on this end. But I'm just going to keep going. I even like the back, guys. It's beautiful. Isn't that fun? It still kind of works. It still kind of works, which is good because with a shawl, you do end up seeing the backside. So Anyway, I've been diligent about weaving in my ends. Look at me, almost no ends to weave in, just my latest color change. And I'm just loving this. So I started to put it on try it on tubing so that I could show it to you a little bit better and so that I could decide. And I've decided it's not big enough yet. So I'm going to keep going on this. Unfortunately, even though it looks so big and I just said it's like my whip that's furthest along, I've got a long way to go because I really want it to be oversized. I love a humongous shawl. So I am working on that one. And I'm also working on my other shawl that is like another big whip, is the Stephen West mkal from last year. So here's the tough thing, and I need advice about this one too. I really like Stephen West's designs. I have a few of his designs in my whip pile right now. And going back through the mkals before I was comfortable, I was like, oh my gosh, I would love slipstravaganza. I would love shawlography. I was so excited about those designs. I really liked, I mean, there were the doodler, like there were quite a few that I thought were just absolutely fantastic. And I was very excited about it. And I know he has hundreds of shawl designs. Some of them I'm very into. Some of them are just not my style. And I started Twists and Turns, which was the 2022 mkal. So by that point in my knitting journey, I'd gotten good enough at knitting that I was like, I can learn things. I feel comfortable learning. And, you know, I think he's a great teacher in terms of his videos and whatnot. I wanted to be challenged. So I dyed up some yarns that I really liked, which are now in another thing. But I was so excited. I was like, I was all prepared. I've got the pattern in advance, or purchased the pattern in advance. And I didn't get through week one. I just didn't like it. I didn't like it. I did half of week one out of 4 weeks. So I did basically 10-15% of the shawl. And I liked the way it looked, but I didn't physically like doing it. And when I saw spoilers for week 2 and week 3, while I was still working on week 1, which is fine, you know, embrace your pace, as he says, I didn't like the shawl that much. I just didn't feel like I needed to have this shawl, and I didn't feel like it was a good use of the yarn that I was so excited about that I had dyed for the shawl. I thought I would rather use that yarn that I dyed for a different shawl of Stephen West's or somebody else's. So anyway, I ended up, I didn't frog my progress. I saved it as a little swatch because I had like this much. And I still have, you know, maybe I'll frog it at some point when I want that yarn. Maybe I'll turn it into something else. But at any rate, I just did not feel the need to finish Twists and Turns. I enjoyed the process. It's not that I necessarily regretted it. So fast forward 1 year later, 2023, I was determined to do the mkal, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to commit. I'm going to get the yarn from him, which I don't normally order yarn from abroad, but you know, I made an exception, and I was like, I'm really excited about this. And this time I'm going to commit to the mkal. So I ordered yarn. I ordered his purple mystery because it was so special. I love purple. And it was so special to me that he was doing this mystery gradient. And in the first clue, there was a whole dramatic setback, which I think was totally valid, that people had different interpretations of his pattern than he had intended, and it was offensive. And I agreed with his decision, and I know it was hard for him and for everybody else to kind of move forward. So ultimately, I chose the Pink Queen yarn, I think is her handle. She had an alternative center, and I really liked her version. So I made that. I stayed up to date with week 1. Week 2, I got halfway through. I did one of the sides, and then I started seeing spoilers for week 3 and week 4. So I will show you my pattern instead of just talking about it. So I did the center like Pink Queen yarns. So this was the purple mystery gradient. So it's from Punk Rock Unicorn, 4 different purple colors. And then after I did her modified Clue 1, which is this big square, which I love. I mean, first of all, this yarn is gorgeous. I absolutely love it. It's so soft, and it really is. Actually, I probably would wear a sweater that was striped with these colors, but it's perfect for a shawl for me. So I loved that. I saw week 2, and I thought it was too plain for me. I decided to do the mohair dare, and then I decided to add beads. So this is my finished edge of my week 2. So I finished this one. So you can see, hopefully you can see, yeah. So I had mohair in stash that was this color, which is almost exactly the same as this color. So it worked really well. And I did the eyelets, I did the beads. I decided on my own order of the color to kind of mostly make it this darker purple that matches the mohair. So this, yeah, anyway. I absolutely love how I did this, okay? I was really excited about that, like just to toot my own horn. I'm not, obviously it's very similar. I'm using the same stitches as he did. I just changed the color order and added the mohair, and added the beads. So it's not like I invented this or anything, obviously. And you can see I've picked it back up here. I stopped when I got to about here in October and just put this away for a while. And I've picked it back up and done probably 12 more rows since then. So I'm coming along. I'm doing this exactly the same as the other side. So even using the same beads, I'm pre-stringing beads and using them on the purl bumps, which is how I like to do beads when I'm beading in my knitting. So here's the issue. I then saw at some point when I was working on Clue 2, I saw Clue 3 and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's not what I expected. But cool, I can do that. And then I saw Clue 4 and it totally changed what I had envisioned for the sweater, and it really threw me off. And I'm not opposed to the stitch pattern in Clue 3 or Clue 4, and I'm certainly not opposed to the shape of a shawl being like that. But what I thought was going to happen, because you're doing an I-cord here, I thought he was going to keep going from the chevron ends. I thought, again, you can stand back and hold this up. I thought we were going to keep going this way and keep going that way and make this a really long, like I-cord's a finished edge, right? So I thought we were just going to make it like a really long shawl. And I don't know, maybe have pointed ends, maybe flare out at the ends. I did not think that we were going to make it a triangular shawl. And then I started thinking about when I was seeing all of the finished shawls, what my conversion with the mohair and the changed stripe pattern and the beading, how that would look in the shawl that he has, which then has these textured dip stitches and stuff and fringe. And I just thought, oh my gosh, I went in the wrong direction for my Clue 2. So that's why this has been in a box in my whip pile for a very long time. It's absolutely beautiful. And again, I love the way that I did this. And then now I started questioning it based on how my direction clashes with what he had planned. And I like that I have thinner stripes here than I have here, but I just, when I looked at the way that the Clue 3 adds on, it's just more little stripes. I honestly don't like it. I don't. To each their own. I really like Clue 1 and Clue 2. And then Clue 3 and Clue 4, I thought, gosh, I would like those on a different shawl, but not with what I've done here. So it made me a little sad, because it was like, man, I thought I liked what I was doing, and now I'm questioning it. I certainly didn't want to frog it, because I do still like what I did. So here's my thought. I had thought this I-cord along the edges here was the edge, and that we were going to continue with these live stitches in this sort of chevron pattern and make it almost a long rectangle. And you know what? That's what I'm doing. I'm going to do that. I have to finish my clue 2 on this side. And I'm going to finish it exactly like the other side. I've actually been, in the last week or two, I've done a bunch of it. So I'm motivated again. I'm gonna just do that, and then I'm just gonna improvise. And what I'm gonna do is I'll show you as we go along, because it's gonna take me months. But I'm gonna pick back up these live stitches that are currently on tubing, and go in this direction and keep doing the I-cord edge, keep doing sort of the chevron, or yeah, it's kind of a chevron, arrow, I don't know. And do different stitch patterns, some just plain garter sections. And I don't want it to be all these little bitty stripes. I want to have bigger swaths of color. I'm still going to use the same colors. I don't think at this point, I feel like the ship has sailed. I don't think I'm going to add another color, although my beads are intentionally like a teal color, and technically I could dye up a little. I don't think I have any in my stash right now, but I could dye up a teal that could be interesting for some stripes. I don't know. I think it's going to be really big. It's going to be really long. It's occurring to me that with the amount of yarn that I have, if I don't want to do any more mohair, then I may have to add a contrast skein that would go with these beads. I don't know. But basically I'm going in my own direction at this point. I still enjoyed being part of the mkal. This was a weird year in terms of the amount of turmoil and frustration that people experienced, and the sort of anger over what happened, which definitely was a setback for a lot of people. And I don't know if that made me think of the next clues differently, although it didn't with clue 2, so I don't know. I don't know if that was a factor for me, or if it was mostly just because I still finished clue 1 on time. I frogged what I'd been doing and changed it and still embraced clue 1. I feel like the dip stitches don't go at all with this. I would be open to doing some of his different shawls that just have those dip stitches or have them in a different context. I just don't like it with my beaded mohair fancy purple thing. So yeah, so I think I'm gonna do a different direction. And in terms of whether I'm going to do the mkal this year, I know I shouldn't. I know that I prefer seeing the shawl and deciding to do it. Like I have not been able to participate in an mkal. I've tried other people's mystery knit alongs too, and I really get excited. So the tough thing is, it's like I paid $6 for a bunch of excitement, and there's nothing wrong with that too. Like that's the case with a lot of mkals. Like I can afford to buy the pattern, and sometimes it's fun for a few weeks to anticipate it. I don't know. I'm so torn about it, because each of the last 2 times I've spent a lot of time and effort. And I the yarn, I don't feel like that's a sunk cost, because even if I were to not like this and frog this, which is not happening at this point, even though I'm changing it, right, I'm still using the yarn. So I don't feel bad about the yarn purchase. Yeah, it's tough. I don't know. I really like the idea of mkals, and I really like the beginning. And then I just feel like, I guess it's often not what I'm expecting. And I'm kind of picky about, I mean, there are millions of knitting patterns out there, right? And like Stephen West alone has hundreds of shawl patterns. So I want to choose the shawls that I like the best of his, not the shawls that I like less of his. And that's kind of what has happened with the last 2 mkals, is that neither of these would have been a shawl of his that I would have seen and said, oh my God, I have to have that. And it's just a shame because for quite a few of his mkals, I really, really like them. So I don't know. Tell me what you think about my alternative plan. Tell me what you think about whether I should add some teal to this, like basically all purple. I'm very much a purple person. You wouldn't know it from the sweater I'm wearing today, but I love purple. Um, and tell me if you think I should do the mkal. And I like, he's bound to have one of these patterns again that I'm obsessed with. And part of me feels like I should like go back in time and work on slip stravaganza, you know, buy that pattern now that it's done and I know what it looks like, and do that while he's doing one of his mkals so that I feel like I'm getting the experience. I don't know. That's so silly because then I'm not, you know, seeing the message boards and I'm not seeing the reveals. I really liked this time that when I got done with Clue 1, I looked at the reveals for Clue 2. I hadn't planned on looking at reveals at all, but again, with the controversy that, you know, I had to kind of look ahead and think about it. So that worked out really well for me. Yeah, I don't know. This is going to be beautiful someday. And it's just going to take me a while. And I get into a kick where I'm working on shawls. But to be honest with you, even though these are the two things I should be working on, right? Finishing socks, that's brief. Mending, my mending pile is, there are some urgent things I have to fix. But these are the two things I should be spending most of my time on, and yet I'm not, right? Because I started a fingering weight colorwork sweater that I just started a couple days ago because I was really excited about it. So this is what I do. I pare down my whips and then I cast on new things instead of continuing my whips. And then I sometimes feel guilty about that. But you know what? I'm finishing things sometimes. I've finished 3 sweaters already this year. 2 of which were whips from last summer, like started early last year, but they were also hand spun. And yeah, I feel like I should be allowed to feel good about that. Nobody's preventing me from feeling good about it except myself and the expectations that I have for myself. So yeah, I think I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing, but I definitely am more motivated to finish this purple shawl because I would just love next winter to be able to wrap myself up in this big shawl. And I think I'm trusting my gut that I was not liking how the finished shawl came out from everybody else who knit it. I certainly saw a lot of people knit it. And so I'm going to go my own direction. And that's my plan. That's my plan for now. And I think that's pretty much all that I want to talk about right now. I could talk about whips for days because I do have a lot of whips, as I often point out. But, all right, maybe I'll talk about one more thing. So, as I just said that I should be working on those things, I have just cast on a tessellated cardigan. And what happened was I had planned some yarn for it. I set aside some handspun that I had exactly the right yardage, and I was going to use some of the Surrey fluff that I dyed for my Evanescence cardigan that was left over. And I had this idea, and the gauge is supposed to be for sport weight, but it's a very fine sport weight. And in pattern, in the tessellated series pattern that's a mosaic like slip stitch color work, it's supposed to be 28 stitches per 4 inches, or like 7 stitches an inch. And I swatched it with the yarns that I was planning, and it looked good and it worked, and it was 28 stitches. It was like right on 28 stitches per inch in the stitch pattern. I did not swatch with the ribbing, and the ribbing is just in the main color, which in this case, what I chose, it was a thicker yarn. It was a sport weight. So I started the ribbing then, because it's a bottom up. And I had to cast on 371 stitches in my size. It was 371 stitches in a, it wasn't just a long tail cast on, it was a tubular long tail cast on. So not my favorite cast on. I'm more of a twisted German, but I wanted to do the tubular cast on and do the conversion. Andrea Mowry likes to do these 2 rows a little differently than I might otherwise, but again, she's a fabulous pattern writer, so I went with it. So I did the 2 setup rows after the tubular cast on, and then I started ribbing, and this thing was huge. And I was getting closer to 6 stitches an inch. And this, I mean, it was like 2 sizes up from where I should have been. I'm okay with a little bit oversized, but it just was not going to work out. And because I knew my gauge was spot on with the other yarns I was using in the slip stitch section, the ribbing was going to flare out. It was just going to look bad. I just knew it, so I frogged it. And I then spent a lot of time debating. I had a couple different options for handspun yarn that I had in my stash that was about a fingering weight, that had enough. I need like 600 yards, so not just 1 skein even, not just 100 grams. So I showed my husband a million options because I just got so bogged down by the different choices, and I didn't want to buy yarn for this by any means, but I had been so excited about it, and I'd already gone through and marked up my size in the pattern. I was so excited to start it after finishing stripes that I had to. At that point, it was like a compulsion. So here is what he picked out. So this is the handspun that we're doing. So this is about a year more old. I made rollags from like a magenta merino. There's undyed airy silk, is that kind of like golden, and then some black merino and some white lotus fiber, which almost feels like a tencel or bamboo. I made these rollags, so then everything got really blendy. It's not a gradient. It's very much going to be like it color changes a little bit, but not dramatically. But it's super soft, and it's a pretty consistent 2-ply fingering weight. And what I figured I would do then is use a gradient for the Surrey, because normally you have a little bit more of a color changing here with if you're using Dyed in the Wool by Spin Cycle, which is what she had designed the pattern for. So I am doing a gradient of Surrey, and yes, this is from my Evanescence, and if I have to dye a little bit more, I will, but I actually think I have just about the right amount. And this is white too, so I could always do a little bit more white at the top. I'm going to start with this more mustard color. And the main color, I just dyed last week a sweater quantity of this, which is almost like a denim blue. And it does have a good sheen to it. It's a recycled wool and tencel, I think. So this is what we're doing. And I think it's going to be really nice, but this is what my husband chose. And he's always right, so I'm just going with it. And that way it feels, I don't know, it feels a little bit more motivating, because again, you know, when you have a setback where I had to frog this elaborate cast on, so many stitches, so frustrating. I spent so much time on that. But I've already recast on with some of this. So yeah, I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be good. This is going to be the main color. So all of the ribbing is going to be in this, like the trim basically. And then we'll get started with the color work. And I think that it's going to be a really different look from a lot of what I tend to gravitate towards. And that's good. I like to challenge myself. I like to try different things. And I can't have everything in my wardrobe be green or purple. I really do. I do a lot of purple shawls and green sweaters. So, I'm trying to push myself and get out of my comfort zone, and I love all colors. So this is what I'm going with. I don't wear a lot of blue on top just because I wear jeans a lot. But you know what? I wear sweaters with dresses a lot. I wear dresses and leggings many days. So I think it's going to be good. And I think because just the trim is this almost denim blue color, I think it's going to work well. Like it literally, guys, this is my jeans. I mean, it's like, I don't know if I can even show you how much this looks just like, yeah, denim. It's really, so I'm not much for the denim tuxedo look, but I do think because it's just going to be the trim that is this color solid, it's still going to work with jeans. I hope. We're going to find out. I may just have to wear it with, it could work with black pants or something. And it could certainly work with some of my dresses. So I'm doing it. Tessellated cardigan is going to be a very long-term project, like everything else I show you. The gauge that it's worked up at and the fact that it's bottom up, I like doing the mosaic knitting. So yeah. So anyway, my goal is to finish the ribbing and start the mosaic at about the time that I'm finishing my Nightshift shawl, which is also mosaic knitting, so that I don't really have two things that are similar in terms of the stitch pattern. I don't know. It's kind of arbitrary, but that is my thoughts. So yeah, I'm excited about that. And I'm just so excited to use this. It was not the original Handspun that I had planned for this project. I planned on something that was a little bit more color changing. It was completely different, but this has been sitting in my stash and I love it. And so it's not something that I really wanted to sell. Which I've never sold my Handspun anyway, but you know, at some points I've considered that. I just wanted this for myself, but it's not quite enough for its own shirt or sweater or anything. And yeah, I just think it's absolutely perfect for this. So I'm excited to use my Handspun. I like this new hand dyed. I actually dyed this to go into a different sweater pattern, and then I didn't like it with the other contrast colors. So I dyed it last weekend, and a lot of times when I'm dyeing, it's more of an experiment. It's fun. I enjoy it. I do like to dye up a sweater quantity, but then sometimes I'm kind of like, oh, it's a sweater quantity, but it's not for this sweater. And it just so happens that I set out to create a color that I did create and then didn't like in the Talkeetna pattern. So I'm not going to make that yet. And I'm going to make the tessellated cardigan. So, yep. Feel free to share comments and feedback and let me know what you think. I really obviously need a lot of help kind of figuring out my mkal, Geogradient mkal. But I'm excited about it, and I will share again next week, and I'll let you know where I'm at. Okay. Like and subscribe if you want to follow along with me. Thanks.